We've been taught everything except how to be human. I'm Miles Adcox, and this podcast turns raw experience into practical wisdom. So if you're ready to stop performing your life and start participating in it, you're in the right place. This is Human School. Every now and then, you meet someone whose life has unfolded in a very public way, and yet they stay authentically true to who they are. Mallory Ervin is one of these people. You might know Mallory for a number of reasons as Miss Kentucky or from her time on The Amazing Race. You might know her as a creator who has built an expansive community online. You may know her as an author, a podcast host, and the founder of brands like Living Fully and In My Sundays. For a long time, her life has been visible, successful, and moving fast. How I see it, and what I hope the world continues to love about Mallory, is the person underneath all of that. Mallory has lived in front of people for a while, and instead of hardening or hiding, she actually softens and brings strength to the table. She lets her life shape her work. She hasn't rushed past the hard seasons or cleaned them up before telling the truth. What stands out to me is her willingness to share her truth without needing to make it neat. She talks about loving her life and still feeling stretched, about faith that anchors her and questions that keep her humble, about building a full life without pretending it's easy. Y'all, this is what I'm really excited about. It's one of my favorite people. We never get to spend enough time together, but today we get to catch up. Mallory Ervin.
Wow. About building a full life without pretending it's easy is like one of the coolest lines that anyone's ever said about me and what I do. Thanks. Of course you said it. Of all the people, one of my favorite people.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miles.
Welcome,
Thank
my
you.
friend. Well,
thank you.
I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to have this conversation. Thanks for making time to do it. I know you're really busy running multiple enterprises and trying to raise babies and all the things.
Aren't we all? And you and I are in the same boat, I think, today, which we talked about off camera. We're a little bit like, I said, I'm glad that this is called Human School because, like, I'm going to be your most human guest on Human School because I had one daughter wake up 2 times and the other daughter wake up 2 times. So we did 4 times last night, and you guys are kind of bouncing a little too, you know?
Yeah. So you're tired.
It's, I'm tired, but I learned from you can be tired and grateful at the same time.
Come on.
So that's what I'm practicing
Good reframe.
today. Oh, yeah, tired and grateful. I loved that.
That was a great message to get. You left me a voice note, which you're speaking to my heart. I'm a voice note guy. They drive some people crazy, but I'm such a verbal processor that
me too.
Ask me to text you back, and it may take 2 hours because I'll be like, wait, how do you make this word go from here to here to here? Say it the way I want to say it, but throw me a voice text. I can do those mostly. Got a voice text on the way in that described what you just described, ironically, for a conversation we're getting ready to have about Human School. But it was so comforting, and I left you one back. You didn't get it in time, but just relating to the experience of every conversation we have every day, whether it's on camera in front of lights and being recorded for people to hear or just normal conversations, there's a lot of life behind the humans that are having it. And we never actually know what's going on, but you can assume if you're in a very busy season in life like we are, that there's some challenge and there's some stress and there's some exhaustion, probably a little anxiety, all the things that kind of come to the table. And look, I don't want to start out by implying that there's not a lot of people that have way more harsh circumstances than you and I might be navigating.
Absolutely.
But the point is to, and you drove it home before we even got here, which is to remember there's 2 humans sitting there having a conversation. Both of us have a lot in the back, in the rear view. And today we're both a little tired, probably got a little brain fog. But I'd rather have conversations with you now versus if you'd have called and said, hey, I got 8 hours of sleep and everything's great. And I just had the best meeting I've ever had. Because this whole idea and this whole concept is about getting the heart of the people.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes those of us that have been platformed, and you much bigger than I have, you got a lot of eyes and ears on what you do, and you've built an incredible community online. I think sometimes they want to feel the realness and not just what the glitz and glamour. And I said that in the bio, and I'll start there because I'd love to hear you elaborate on it. I'd love to get back in your story because I don't know that I ever have, except for your book. I've got some really cool nuggets out of your book, but that's been a little while, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about where you came from. But I kind of wanted to start first with why does that appear to be so important to you? There's the concept of being authentic to who you are publicly, privately, have you ever tracked that back or traced it back and say, I wonder where that came from? Has it always been that way, or is it a learned skill?
You know, it's funny, and you and I love that we both love our voice memos, and I should have gone back to mine and your text chain and seen how many voice memos you and I have sent back and forth, because, Miles is you're such a special person to me, because you've helped me so much in my life, and I think that the work that you do on the earth is just amazing. So to be here today is a really big deal for me. So mush brain or whatever I'm showing up with, I'm so grateful to be here. And authenticity is a little bit, it's slung around a lot, like this day and age, I think. And ironically, here we are at the beginning of 2026, and like everything is not only authentic or inauthentic, like sometimes it's created on a computer. Like, let's talk about that whole other element that's coming into the world that can't necessarily even be authentic or inauthentic. But it's something that became really important to me, I don't know, 11 or 12 years ago, when I ended up in a treatment program after I'd reached like the mountaintop moments of my life and done all the things that you listed in that wonderful bio. And as you hear from a lot of people, I got all the things that I thought I wanted, and I got to the top of the mountain, and not only did it not feel like I thought it would, but I was I was crippled by perfectionism and what everything looked like on the outside. And I was very seen, but I wasn't like known at all, I don't think, especially like by myself. And going to treatment, what ended up happening in my story that I know we'll talk about, was the single best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. Not doing Miss America and racing around the world with my dad on The Amazing Race. And it was the biggest moment of adversity that I ever had in my life. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And I tell people sometimes you and I talk to a lot of people that maybe they're at the crossroads. And I tell people, I'm like, from my experience, let me tell you, you are at the most wonderful spot that you could be in your entire life. Because if you cross over this line and like you get into the program or the therapy or whatever, what's going on right now will be life's gift to you. I am so grateful that I was born with an addictive brain, that landed me there, because it changed my life, Miles. It changed my life because it taught me authenticity. And it's so funny in the way that it taught me authenticity. I'd come off of all of those things that I'd done, and this big, huge turning point for me in treatment was when they took my hair extensions out for the first time in 10 years. And I had an out-of-body experience and a full-blown nervous breakdown, and that was the 180. A lot of people in treatment, like, they have that moment where everything actually like breaks wide open. That was the moment, and I think that was the beginning of the journey of authenticity for me. Because when I first got there, I was still like, they called me the queen of rehab, because like I was the
model patient.
I was the model patient. I was Miss Kentucky at rehab, and like, everyone was like, I would sing at the chapel services on Sunday, and I would, everyone would introduce me to their parents on parent weekend, and I was, that's who I was. And then they cracked me open, and it was my journey into authenticity, and I can never go back to the way that I was, because something shifted in me, and it's like the most important thing to me now. Wow. Which is awesome. But it was handed to me through my experience in recovery. Truly.
So you truly see it as a gift that you're just so proud.
Gosh. With a bow on top of it, in shiny paper. It was, I'd spent 3 years before that on national television and I had issues with titles and all the shiny things in life, big time. And I was really interesting because I put a crown on and I put my title across my body and walked into the room. As a person that has issues with like being connected to a title, it's probably the worst case scenario. I walked in, here's Miss Kentucky. And if you didn't know, she has it literally written across her body.
Wearing it like a badge.
Wearing it like a badge. Wearing it like a sash. And it was so amazing. I always like to be like, I talk about recovery sometimes in like a little bit of a different way than other people do. And I like for you to see when you look at me and when you meet me and, you find out that you've been sober for 12 years, maybe, I haven't heard you talk about that, whatever. I want you to see what is on the other side of recovery, because it's not just like I made it through this thing, or I didn't lose my life, or I got my family back and my job back and I'm healthy. For me, it gave me a gift of this rich, grounded, beautiful life that I'm 100% sure I would not have had I not had to go through that if I hadn't been a person in recovery. And so to me, it is the ultimate gift. It is the ultimate gift. I think a lot of people think of adversity of like, you have to make it through this thing. And like, for me, it was just like, it made me the person that I am. And it is the ultimate gift. And I always want people to know, that. And to know that the other side is so much better than the life that you had before. It really is.
Well, it's, I tell you, I love those of us that are in any type of redemption story or recovery walk, whatever you want to say, that have overcome some things that are now trying to live into the best version, acknowledged them, took accountability for them, did what we needed to do to change. That shows up differently for a lot of people.
Yes.
I happen to have a very similar story to yours, that I found myself in my mid-20s in treatment, and what I thought at the time was going to be the biggest obstacle in my life that I might ever face ended up being the biggest blessing and the biggest gift. And the reason I love talking to people like that have been through that experience or an experience like that is there's a lot of places we could have gone when I said, I'm identifying one of your biggest gifts is you have this way. You don't have to try to be authentic. You just tell the truth. And it's kind of attractive. It's interesting.
Thanks.
I just want you, people want to be around. It's an energy that you can trust. And when I said, where do you draw your inspiration from? There's a lot of places you could have went. Well, and you went straight to one of the harder moments of your life and said it was because of this. And there's so many of us that have redemption stories that you may never know, that are in the rear view. Your case 12 years ago, my case 20 years ago. I often don't highlight or talk about that, but boy, do I use it every day. Every day. I come across somebody who is on the edge of questioning, is redemption possible for my story? And I feel like God has just equipped me to know how to be with people in those spaces.
Yes, He has.
And I think He has you as well. I mean, ironically, most of the conversations we have start or end with trying to help somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I work in the helping profession for a living. So it's naturally, I have those conversations every day. But you're one of my friends that does a lot of other things, but you still make time and draw people in who want to use your testimony as an inspiration to see if they can grow, change, and heal into their lives. And I've been around the space long enough that I've also seen the result of what happens when people do. And they start to slowly, over the first year, the second year, the third year, realize that, oh my gosh, the biggest obstacle in my entire life just became my biggest gift. I will always live more true and more clear. You said something early in that description. You said you felt very seen and not really known at all.
Yeah.
And I want to stop there for a minute, because I make up that the listeners, there's a lot of people that could relate to that. Whether you're public in what you do or not, you may feel that a lot of people see you, but nobody really knows you. There's this chasm I talked about with another friend of mine on an episode earlier, or at the end of last year, between public and private parts of our stories. And I'm not necessarily talking about public in terms of a public profession. It's just what I reveal to the person who also take me. What I choose not to reveal. And now that vulnerability's kind of gotten cool and hip and sexy, it's trending. And I think all of us are trying to find our way through it in a very clumsy way. Because I think sometimes we go a little too far when we're not quite ready. We haven't reconciled parts of our stories, but we recognize it's trending and people want to hear it. So we kind of get it out there, in some cases maybe with the wrong motive or the wrong reasons. But boy, when you really integrate it, when you can integrate truth in your life, I think it's the most freeing feeling on the planet. And when it comes to recovery and addiction, which it sounds like we might talk a little bit about, which I love, that may be part of our conversation, even beyond what you've shared so far. You might have heard that if you are navigating or dealing with a substance that has become unmanageable in your life, pick your poison. There's lots of things we can use to medicate our nervous system, so numb our nervous system. It could be alcohol. That's one of the most common ones, but there's a lot of other ones out there. It gets to a point where we use terminology like you hit a bottom. And I've learned that everybody's bottom's different.
Yeah.
You know, some people are literally on the doorstep of death.
Yeah.
And they wake up and it's like, not again, we're going to figure out this. And other people, it can be different levels. But when you're there, there's a moment where there's no place else really to go. You feel exposed. And there's one way out, which is surrender and honesty. I can't do this alone. I need some help, and I'm going to be honest going forward. Most freeing thing on planet Earth. And you got to do it in more ways than one. It sounds like when you were in that 30-day experience, in that I make up, you don't just show up at your first, I don't even know the right terminology, so correct me if I'm wrong, but your first pageant, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And land in Miss Kentucky. I imagine you started that early, or that maybe did you ever?
That one's a tough example because it was kind of like that with Miss Kentucky. It took me 3 times to win, but I wasn't like a pageant girl.
You went straight into
I was kind of a tomboy and like grew up on a farm, and like this is, you know, you and I have a lot of reasons that we connect and that we're a little bit alike. But like I was like, it was a little bit different, but I was a singer, and in the Miss America pageant, it's 35% of your score is talent, 25% back then was interview. I could do an interview, and my talent was, I knew that I was good. And so I was like, well, that's like over half of the score. So I think I can do this. And it, you know, that was another thing that changed my life. But I did kind of, you know, it did kind of fall into it in
that
a
makes
weird
me
way.
feel even better about the state, Miss Kentucky, Miss Tennessee, that you can actually come into it and not have experience going back to childhood. That's so cool. I just assumed, but even if you didn't formally have that experience as a child, as a kid, from the outside looking in, I don't know those percentage breakdowns where it's like, 35's on interview, 35's on talent. That's kind of cool to know. I just think we're evaluating people on their, what you see.
Yeah.
Physical beauty.
That's what I used to think too. Yeah.
And it was poignant when you shared that part about, I had this real big breakdown / breakthrough when they pulled the extensions out, like this physical representation. So whether, in your case, you hadn't been a part of that, but there was something that you'd been doing along the way where it sounds like physically how you presented yourself to the world was a really important thing until maybe that's not what I thought it was. Yeah.
And I was hanging on to dear life to that, and struggling and crumbling on the inside. So like back to what you were saying, I was very seen, and I was seen since I was 6 years old. I was on a stage at 6 years old, and I loved singing and I loved performing. And I was from this tiny town where I was just the superstar. I sang at every wedding, funeral, county fair, everywhere. And it was who I was. And it was a really positive thing. You know, we grew up on a farm with 23 first cousins. My grandparents lived in the middle. All of my aunts and uncles lived all around. I had this amazing family that I was the oldest, not only of the 4 kids that I grew up with, but of all 23 of these cousins. So I was like the example. I was the achiever. I was the valedictorian. I was the Miss Kentucky. I was all of the things. So naturally, when you start to struggle, and not only are you the golden child to your siblings and your parents, 23 cousins that literally were like my brothers and sisters, a whole hometown. Like they said that during the night of Miss America, the live telecast, you could walk. It's a farming community. There are cornfields and soybean fields. And, you know, you could walk outside on your back porch and you could hear people screaming, like in this, you know, little county that I was from. So I was going to disappoint those people if I'd said something about what I was struggling with, which was prescription pill addiction. I was still like the quote unquote good girl who I had never done an illegal drug in my entire life. And I spent 6 months in a treatment program. Still to this day, it's kind of wild. It's kind of a wild part of my story, but I also, I was disappointing all these people. And the biggest thing though to me is I was always self-motivated and self-driven. I was so disappointed in myself though. And I felt like, too, I've always been a very religious person, and I felt like I'd been given all of these gifts. I was a singer. I'd been given this amazing family. We had been given the means to, for me to do every sort of program and go all over singing and do all these things. And I had been given all of these gifts, God-given gifts and talents. And I felt like I was disappointing God, which was really sad to me. And I can remember, you talk about, everybody has their different version of rock bottom. And while mine wasn't like, I didn't get arrested, I wasn't in a car accident, like I had a really kind of shiny version into rehab, which really matched my story. But I used to live across from Belmont University on 18th Avenue South, and I went to church on Belmont Boulevard. It was probably like a 2-mile run from my house. And I used to run with like a rosary in my hand when I was really struggling in my life, because my struggle really started coming to a head when I had done Miss Kentucky. I'd almost won Miss America. Thank goodness I didn't, because you want to talk about a public spiral, that would have been that. I'm glad that wasn't part of my journey. And then we had done The Amazing Race. So in 2010, I was runner-up in Miss America. I had done 2 seasons of The Amazing Race with my dad. And then like I was struggling with this prescription medication, and like I couldn't top myself. I couldn't find another gig that felt as good. And so I was like crumbling under the weight of that, because I felt like everyone was expecting the next big thing from me. I had all these pilots of TV shows that just weren't panning out, and I was struggling. And I used to run. I was running outside. I had these rosaries in my hand, and I would go into the church and nobody was in there. And I used to, my rock bottom, I can like physically feel. I used to, in the church, there was like this cold marble altar and nobody was in there. And I used to kneel down like in front of, there was a big cross, and put my hands on the floor, and it was this cold floor. And I would light a candle and I would just say, please help me. And I would say, I'm so sorry. And I think I was saying like, I'm so sorry to myself. I was saying, I'm so sorry to God, because I just felt with everything that I'd been given that I was such a disappointment. And I used to pray, take this away from me tomorrow. Help me not to want to take this. My drugs of choice were Adderall and Ambien, but I was taking them to a level that was it was a wonder that I was still alive. And I used to say, please, like I was asking for a miracle. Take it away from me. And like I know now, 12 years later, my miracle was treatment. My miracle was recovery. That was the answer to my prayer. And I thought it was going to look a lot different than it did. And I'm so glad that it didn't. But, my rock bottom that happened around that time, it felt very like alone. It felt very disappointing. It felt very like destitute and sad, and so much different than people see in my life today. And what's funny is I went to treatment, and I was the model child, and I was like, oh, perfect. This is my next thing. And I asked at the front desk, that I said, can you guys get my laptop sent to me? Because I'm going to start writing a book about this. This was like, 10 days in.
Yeah.
And they looked at me like, oh, awesome.
That's great.
You're going to be such a great case for us. And, I spent almost 6 months of my life there. I did extended care. And we took out a shovel and got to the bottom of all of the things that you and I both know were at the bottom of my addictive behaviors and everything that was going, quote unquote, wrong in my world. Now I see it as right in my life. And like I said, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And something else that's interesting about rock bottom, and I wrote about this in my book, is rock bottom's kind of a great place, because a lot of times like the helpers come in to help you, like my parents in my case, or like I'll send a voice memo to my friend Miles about, this person's rock bottom that's just called me, or their parents have called me, or whatever. Nowadays in my life, and what I think living fully is I talk to the people who haven't reached the rock bottom yet. Like I don't want them to have to get to rock bottom. But when there's not like the red flag waving, or the emergency, or the we've got to take care of this person because they're going to hurt themselves, or they're going to ruin their life, or someone else, it's actually a lot harder to change your life, I think. And I talk about that, I think, authentically every day on social media, about what life looks like while you're living it. And maybe you don't have this like rock bottom, red flag, crazy, I have to go to a treatment program. But maybe your life just doesn't feel like it's ended up where you thought it would be. Or maybe you feel like in the back of your mind something's off. Or maybe your marriage is struggling. Or maybe you feel like you have no purpose, or you're not parenting the way you thought you would, or whatever it is. Honestly, you know about this, because a few years ago, like I felt like that even in my own life. And I'm very familiar with that feeling, because I talk about it and I look out for it. And I think living fully is being aware of your life and when it feels off. And I went to Onsite. The Living Centered program was so amazing. And I know this is not a plug for Onsite, but I have to give my plug for Onsite because it was a transformative experience for me. And but for the people who don't end up there, who don't end up in a treatment program, I hope to be able to show up authentically to them on the days where they just feel it's off and they want something more from life. And I, while we're talking about rock bottom, I always just have to mention that because it's something that I'm really passionate about. And I know you are too, with all of the things that I see you put out into the world. Because you, like me, I just want people to live the best, biggest, most wonderful version of their life.
We weren't meant to heal in fragments, and that's why Onsite offers immersive 6-day workshops and personalized one-on-one intensives at our healing centers in Tennessee and California. It's a space to lay down armor, reset, and finally get to the root so that you can grow and heal. Learn more at experienceonsite.com. Well, there was a lot in there. Gosh, you said some great things.
Sorry to go from one to the next, Miles.
No. I'm glad you did, actually. There's a couple of things in there that I was going to ask anyway, and you already eliminated it, which is way better. Rock bottom is an interesting thing, and I'm glad you doubled back on it because there is an older school train of thought when it comes to addiction and addiction studies that there has to be enough suffering in order for there to be surrender. Mm-hmm. And at some level, I don't disagree with that. And yet it's all contextual because everybody hurts differently and everybody heals a little differently. Yeah. So I don't know. I think we found patterns and rhythms and have worked in this space for a really long time. I started my career out more in the addiction space before pivoting over to more of the traumatic stress and overall mental health space. And I still am involved a little bit in the addiction space, but real life experience, more than anything I learned out of a textbook or from a mentor, has taught me more about the rhythm of recovery and the rhythm of addiction. And because early on, a lot of my training from mentors and what I was studying at the time was I'm a dyed-in-the-wool recovering codependent. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I don't know if I pick my profession or my profession pick me. And some days it's a beautiful thing to get to help people, and some days it's a big burden because I take a lot of it on. It makes me good at what I do, and when I'm not in a healthy place with it, I take way too much of people's pain on, and I've had a hard time over the years regulating that. I feel like experience has been the best teacher of learning how to not over-personalize it or get more invested in somebody's story than they may be invested in themselves. But early on, that was some of the traditional wisdom I would get. So, I was around the clock intervening on people and pulling them out of hotel rooms at 3 a.m. and dangerous stuff, silly stuff, just try to help people. And I realized that was as much for me as it was for them. I was still trying to reconcile that hole that I had and that entire part of my story. But I've seen rock bottom for too many people be death. And I'm just not willing to wait anymore. I've had people tell me that before. It's like, until they hit a bottom, they're not ready for help. Just not ready for it. And I'm like, if they had their best agency on board right now, there's no, how do we get ready when you're under that cloud of shame and fear and anxiety and depression and all the things that kind of come underneath if you scratch addiction? It's like, ooh, there's a lot under the hood. I had another mentor tell me early on in recovery, they said, if you're going to get into this space, you need to get some dark suits because, and they weren't wrong. I've been to way too many funerals. Yep. But I also know nowadays I'm willing to reach a little further and push a little harder when somebody can't fully recognize the value in themselves enough to go try to reconcile the pain in their story and to live more fully. There's a fine art to doing that and not giving up your life or your peace to go help pull somebody out of the ocean. But our job, and I think I'm glad I wound up working in the psychology space, but the reason I pivot over and work in entertainment and work in other sports and other spaces is because I really think the true messengers are those that might prevent the people that ultimately will land in where you and I got to land. Now, we know it was our biggest gift, thankful, but we know it's not realistic that most people aren't in a position to be able to take 30 days out of their life unless it's motivated by crisis and there's no other choice. So for everybody else out there, if you can read Mallory's story in Living Fully, if you can hear her conversation, if you hear this conversation, And it encourages you not to have to get to quote unquote bottom before you start to recognize that living honestly and accountable and true equals freedom and contentment, not happiness, but contentment.
Yeah.
Then I think more and more people might put their put that in their North Star. And that's, gosh, I guess that's what I'm hoping for. And it seems like that's kind of what drives a lot of your activity.
Yes. Miles, I really agree with that. And I do love the old school thoughts around certain messages around recovery, but there are some that didn't fit with me. There were some that felt like so fear-based, and part of it needs to be fear-based because like it is scary there sometimes, and that works for a lot of people. But as a bright kind of positive, person, some of that stuff didn't fit for me. And I want why not try and change your life when you're 75%? If 100% is rock bottom and you're at 75% and life just doesn't feel great, like I want people, I always say something like it's some version of like what I want for people always is to fear not, let me say this correctly because this is a line that I like and my mush brain.
We'll get it in there.
It's I want people to fear not living a full life more than experiencing pain within it. I want people to, like, you and I both know that like the adversity is what does bring about the full life. But if you don't reach rock bottom, like look at your life there at 50 or 75% and look at your days and look at I just thought it would be better than this, like in the back of your mind. And people know in the silence and stillness of your brain, if you can get off of social media and turn your phone off and sit in your bed and think with your brain without a TV and without a phone, I think everybody can hear the voice inside of their head telling them the thing, usually. I believe that. And if your voice in the back of your head is saying, like, I want more than this, listen to that voice. Like, don't waste years, don't waste days, don't waste hours. And also, like, be inspired by the grabbing life by the horns and changing your life. Like, don't. I love that. And I love it that we're talking about it today because I actually don't hear a lot of people talk about you don't have to get to rock bottom. Like I say in my book, I had a chapter that said, fine is the new rock bottom. Fine. I'm fine. Whatever. I'm fine. Everything's okay. Like mediocre, regular comfort, but not in like the good kind of comfort, but the bad kind of comfort, the baseline life. Life will always welcome you home, back down to like baseline mediocre comfort. Everything's regular and fine. I do not believe that was the way that we were meant to live on earth. There is just a richness to life, whether it's up here or down here. I do not like this all the time. I'm not going to go too low, but I'm not going to go too high. And I am very passionate about that, which is why I believe like fine is the new rock bottom. And also, Miles, because we are such a distracted culture, you want to talk about human school. What is the thing that we all need to probably think about right now? I need to think about it the most because my life is integrated with the distraction of social media, which is why I am passionate about showing up in an authentic way, telling my real story, sharing my story of recovery, sharing the parts of life that are a little bit messy, but without like teaching while learning. I always try not to do that because I think sometimes when you are a lifestyle person online, you can become the person that's just like kind of giving everybody the lesson of things when you're still learning them yourself. And I think that's the recovery in me is just like I wanted my laptop 10 days in. I was about ready to write a book about recovery. And then it took me 8 years to share my story about recovery. I really try to be a responsible person online for the most part and not do that. But I do believe that distraction right now is a bit of a red flag of our culture. It's like telling us how to think and telling us how to be. It inspires us sometimes and it's amazing. It'll crack a door open to, oh, maybe I have a problem with this or whatever. But I would say like 75% of the other time, it's a distraction. It's a distraction from the thoughts that you need to have in your own brain, from the feelings you need to have in your own heart, from the life that you're actually living when you put the phone down, if you put the phone down. And something that I am learning as a parent, they always say, your kids, your two children are the same age as two of my 4 children. And I hear it and I hear it and I hear it, but I have to really listen to it, is like they're learning by watching you. And a big part of my job, even though like my clothing businesses are really big businesses, I still am talking about those. I am essentially like, the reason that people are buying a lot, it's because of my online, it's because we've opened up our life to people. It's because of what we share online, and it's always been a really positive, amazing thing for me. But now that my kids are getting older and I can see their eyeballs, and when I say you can't use that screen, but I'm sitting here with one, I am thinking about that more. I am, there's a little tool called that brick. You know those bricks?
I've got one, yeah.
One's in my purse. I mean, I've got that phone bricked all the time now. But I still think that there is so much beauty online in the way that I'm able to share my story. I'm able to open the doors of my home. I've always been like innately a real truster of people, and probably to my detriment sometimes, but I'll always be that person. I love people. I will give people that stand in a line at a meet and greet my cell phone number. Like I am that person. I've always been that person, and I let people into my life like that. And people ask me questions of like, how much is too much? And I say to them, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I know in my gut when I feel there are things that maybe I don't need to share, but I kind of do like open it all up. And I hope that that's a good corner of social media for people. Of course, I'm talking about products, and I'm telling you to buy things that maybe you don't need to buy all the time, too many of, if you're trying to save your money, or like, I always try to share things that I do love myself. And I believe the 2 products that I do are the absolute best products in the world in that space. I'm very passionate about the things that I create in the world, and a lot of parts of those. But I always hope that the space that I am for people on social media is a positive space. And I always tell people, if it's not, then like don't watch it. Like turn your phone off or get off of. I'm a person on Instagram, and like that's kind of my job, but I'm always like, get off of it. Like if it's really like hurting your brain, like if it's really distracting you from your children at night, if you're reading this bedtime story but you're going like this with your phone right here, like we all have, get off of it. Get off of it, or brick your phone for 2 weeks, and it helps to rewire your brain, and you can see the glimmer of hope, just like you can in recovery. Like when you first start to get sober, when you first can when the clouds part, and you can remember your own thoughts again, and it's a beautiful, special, awesome thing. And I know it's ironic for a person that's like on social media and that's really shows up online to be like, maybe take some time offline, but the thing that I want the most for people and anyone that comes across me and any of my content, any of my product, is for them to live a better life, for them to live fully. It is why I do most everything that I do. And talking about authenticity and going back to that, I would not be authentic to what I want for the world or what I want to do with my platform if I didn't state that over and over and over again, because I believe that. And I have to teach myself that lesson over and over.
It's probably no accident that the young woman that went to the front desk 10 days into treatment and said, I think I found my new calling. And I was wondering where you would go. And at that time you think about writing about it, or maybe thinking about pursuing something in a helping profession. And in a sense you have, in a very non-traditional way.
In a very non-traditional way.
If the entire part of your whole entrepreneur journey is, I do this because I want people to live a great life. I mean, that's prevention. When people are living content and a good life, they're not as likely to be addicted or distracted. I
like that. I like the way you said that. I've actually never heard anyone say that like that. It's prevention. I've never thought of it that way, but I really love that. Thank you for saying that today.
Well,
I'll write that down.
I think there's a moment in a lot of people's story, and I'm actually glad you're talking about social media, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you know, what you do, who you are, how you've built something really special in that space. And I feel, even though I've been on it for a while, I hadn't really been on it. I'm new to it in a way of trying to make a go at it over the last year and a half with this podcast and with some other things I've got coming with the book. I definitely see the importance of the tool. I've had a massive challenge trying to build a decent relationship with it. But I'll get to that in a minute. I want to bookmark it because I actually would love some of your counsel and just to see if you've struggled with some of what I'm struggling with now. But I want to go back just because I think it was such a poignant moment when we were talking about rock bottom. And I make up there's quite a few people out there that are going through dark seasons that maybe are having that hand on the altar moment right now. And they're looking up or out. I don't know if they are people of faith and or maybe different faith or maybe no faith, but they're looking somewhere and saying, please help. That's what I heard you say. Please help. And I would imagine they're hoping for something after that. Like, is there a sign? Is this going to be answered? Is there clarity? Is there a next step? So if you'd be open to just sharing kind of, you got there and then what? You kind of had your hands up moment. And what happened after that?
I did. I had my hands up, my hands out. And as a very religious person who believes in miracles, who believes in signs, I really thought that I would wake up one day and it would have disappeared. And you and I both know I don't know. Do you know anyone that's ever happened to? Does it ever just disappear?
It's pretty rare, but yes.
Really?
I have seen.
Okay.
I don't know that I would have called it. I hate to even say this because there's so many people out there that are like, oh, great, that's me. I mean, the 1%, the less than the 1%. But I've seen people one day that just decided I'm not going to do this anymore, and they didn't.
I don't know how that.
I
think that's
99% of the people, it requires work, intention, a plan, and a process.
And I was I was in my mid-20s. And you know what the interesting thing too about my story too, Miles, is that I didn't drink. I didn't start drinking young. I didn't have a drink of alcohol until at the very end of college. I had never dabbled in prescription medications or drugs. I still didn't dabble in drugs. Like I said, mine was a prescription pill addiction, which I was using as a drug, same thing. But
did you get prescribed to you by a family doctor? Or
family doctors.
And I'm assuming you were struggling with focus and sleep. Was why they went with the
but
stimulant and a benzo.
So, it was interesting because when I was Miss Kentucky, when your schedule is just cuckoo crazy, I was speaking at 6 schools a day, sometimes by myself, driving all over Kentucky because as Miss Kentucky, I was employed by the Department of Agriculture, and I would go and I was paid to speak at schools for the Kentucky Proud program, but I was able to share my message, and so it's this cool kind of setup. But it is a grind. People don't realize that it's actually a real job. But in some states, and back in the day, pageants are different nowadays. And pageants kind of get a bad rep, but this was a job. I was a representative
of the state of Kentucky.
Of the state of Kentucky.
And does it happen when you win? Oh, yeah. You're immediately employed? Immediately. So did they tell you that before you get in the contest? You'll have is it a year commitment?
Yeah. It's one of the reasons that I wanted the job. But during that year, it was a grind, and it was awesome. It was my dream. I loved it. Oh, my gosh, it was amazing. But, I would wake up at 4:15 in the morning. I would exercise. I would get ready. I would be at the first school by 7 a.m. Next school. You'd come home. You'd have interview practice. You'd have a dress fitting. You'd have to work out again or whatever it is. And I would sleep 3 hours a night. So, even though I was 3, that was a grind over and over and over. And then I have this crippling weight on my shoulder of, gosh, now I have to win Miss America because this is the next thing for me. And I got to prep for this, but do a good job here. And I just was talking to a doctor, and I was like, I can't do it. I just don't have any energy. I'm losing focus. But it was because I was exhausted and doing too much, And it was kind of well, this can help. Oh, I didn't really get tested for it. I don't think I have. I think we all probably have slight attention, in certain times of life. I think it's a little situational. But I was never diagnosed with anything that I needed that medication for. It was just kind of a helper. And I think I wrote this line in my book of what once started as this flame that gave me unlimited energy. It allowed me to do my job. It felt awesome. Eventually became a fire that threatened to burn my entire life to the ground. And it happened pretty fast. But I went from mid-20s, there was a few years of just hard and fast, more and more medication. And then, when you're taking an upper like that all day long, you can't sleep at night. So, of course, walk back in. Hey, I can't sleep. Okay, here you go. This will help you. And if you have an addictive personality and just the circumstances just set up to where it was a wildfire for me, and it got out of control really fast. And then I had this persona that I'm trying to show on the outside that's so perfect and polished and put together, when I have a developing prescription pill addiction. I have, once those things I was so proud of were over, I had to look at the mirror, and like I said, I was very seen, but like I didn't know who I was, because I thought that I was all the things. Like we hear this over and over in the mental health space, and you hear it over and over because it's very true that you are not the thing. I think the mom that's listening to this, the country music singer that's listening to this, the person that's going through recovery, I was not the crown, I was not the banner, I was not the TV show, I was not the hometown star. But I had absolutely no idea like who would be underneath that. Like I never knew that person. I was on stage at 6, so I wasn't going to find myself at 5. I mean, I'd been that person my whole life in different versions. And I didn't know who I was or who I wanted to be. And the first time I kind of faced that person this was after 30 days in treatment. And I'd kind of like started to see the light, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I can sleep again. I felt these just glimmers of joy that was not like chemically altered joy. Like it was not substance driven high and low. It was just like from the insides of my body. And I would wake up in the morning and, you feel that levity and that joy that you feel on the other side of coming out of the fog of whatever you're numbing with. And it felt so good, after 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. And then I sat there in front of my counselor with my parents, who were the people that got me into treatment. And I knew, like, okay.
And did they start seeing? Did you just have that good of a relationship that you were honest with them when it started to get ahead? Or they saw certain things?
I had a great relationship with them, but they lived in Kentucky, still on the farm, and I lived in Nashville. And of course, I was embarrassed about like the crumbling life that was becoming my life, so I hid it from a lot of people. I was very isolated. I hid it until it started kind of spilling out and spilling out and spilling out. And the funny thing was, I was still filming car commercials. I was still emceeing charity auctions. I was still doing those things, and people could tell like there was kind of something wrong. And then there was this there was this weekend that I emceed this auction at like our hometown school, where my parents like saw me on the stage, and I guess everyone else did too. I thought I was doing a great job and was totally fine. Everybody else apparently was like, what is wrong? And that was the breaking point. I was back home in Kentucky. They took my keys away, went through my stuff, and this part of my story is important too, because we had no experience with anyone having like a struggle like this in our family. And I was the oldest, so like no one had ever dealt with any kind of recovery, any kind of mental health challenge, recovery, whatever you want to call it. And no one knew what to do, but everyone knew that there was something like super wrong. And so my dad, who I'm like, that's who I went on The Amazing Race with. My dad is like the most awesome person on the face of the earth. So is my mom. But he was the person in my life that was like, she can do it. She doesn't need help. She can do it. Like he knew there was something wrong, but he was the party in my life that had he been the one in charge, because he believed so much in me and we didn't know a lot about what was going on, I probably wouldn't be here today had my mom not been the one in my corner being like Googling, literally getting on the computer and saying, what do we do for what's going on right now? And trying to figure this out. Also, like they were kind of like not embarrassed about it, but like you just don't want to admit that your child is going through this. So trying to find a way out for me, because I didn't know what it looked like. I couldn't find a way out for myself. So anyways, they landed on, well, she's going to have to go to these types of programs. We picked one. We found a person in our hometown that had been to one. They talked secretly to him. He's kind of in the recovery space. And I ended up at one, and I can still remember like when we pulled up there, and you go in and you're not going to say, hi, I'm Mallory Ervin. This is the amount of that I'm taking of this medication. This is the amount. This is how bad it is, because you're just cross-eyed by the time you get there. They didn't really know what was going on. I didn't really know what was going on. I got there and I said, watch, they're going to take my blood and you guys wait in this waiting room, and then they'll tell you I'm not a drug addict and I don't belong here, and I'll be heading back with you guys. And of course I went back there, and you know how it goes. I go back there, and my parents left, obviously, because they knew I was supposed to end up there. They had spoken to the people there. The people there knew this was the right place for me. And when they got in the car, I obviously wasn't part of the situation. But when my parents got in the car, my mom said, "Oh, I feel so relieved." And my dad was so emotional and said, "I feel like I'm leaving my child. I'm abandoning my child."
Wow.
And, you know, it's a great thing when you reach rock bottom. And in a way, like we're talking about today, how you don't want to reach rock bottom. Hopefully you can listen to a podcast like this and have enough of that gumption in you to pull your life together. And maybe this is a turning point for you. How amazing to take your one beautiful life and do that. But if you do hit a rock bottom, I hope you have someone like my mom that was in my corner, that was the person that pushed it across the finish line. And that's why, even though I have a slammed schedule from 6 a.m. until 12 p.m., just like you do, and I know you work in this space, I will answer the phone if you call and you say, "My child, this is what's happening. This is what's happening with my child," or "my brother," or "my mom." Because if they don't have that person in their life, if I hadn't had that person in my life, Miles, I would not be sitting here in this beautiful building talking about human school. I would not be alive if I hadn't had that one person in my life. And it's so wonderful to have that person. And I think it's a gift. I love it that you were just talking about how, like, you try not to get too wrapped up in wanting it more for other people. You got to be there for people, not want. But what a gift it is that you and I get to be a small voice to help somebody come across the finish line. You are the finish line. You are the across the finish line. I get to be the hand holder sometimes.
How many times have I just had this visual of a race? How many times have you ran the baton and handed it to me?
A lot of times. In the last year, I've run the baton to Miles, I would say significant batons to Miles, like I would say 8 times this year. And all of the people that we've batoned are doing awesome.
I don't always get those stories. The post, that's awesome. Amazing.
All of the batons. And you know what's kind of funny as like a public person, there's just an anonymity about this space that people know everything that I do all day, every day. I show up like you see me while I'm drinking my coffee. I don't have on makeup. I look like a mess. I've got a retainer in my mouth still, whatever. That's how I show up online. But people don't know that. People don't know probably this part of my story, that I am still so secretly involved in helping people to get across the finish line. And that's my, that is the way that I think I wish there was another word for pay it forward, but like for someone saving my life, because that was a part of my story, was the person getting me there. I was so crippled by what I thought other people would think of me that I would never have sought the help. I did not know who I was, what I wanted. I was also young. And what a beautiful thing. You want to talk about like human school. I know I keep saying the name of the podcast. I'm sorry to keep going back to it, but I love words. That's why I like Living Fully. I talk about it all the time. I'm obsessed with it. I named my podcast, my book, my merchandise company. Everything is like Living Fully to me. But what a beautiful thing it is to be a human being on the earth that gets to help another human being. We're in a world right now where we're just like watching people live their lives online, but like to be able to do that person to person, and to be with a person in their moment of greatest strife and vulnerability and despair, to be a bright light is so cool to be able to do offline. And I hope that like that is always a part of how I show up online, and why I finally chose to share my story. Because you know what's funny is I had built a whole humongous hundreds of thousands of followers online that saw me living the life on the other side of recovery. And I never said, by the way, I went to a treatment program for 6 months. But what I kept seeing was people show up at my events or be in my DMs being like, I wish I could have a marriage that looks like yours, or a life that looks like yours, or like, I love gosh, you're so happy all the time. I have this and this in my life, so I could never do that. But I like watching you do it. And I kept thinking to myself, oh my gosh, they don't know this whole big old section of my life that they are literally pointing out to me in themselves. And I would say things in a roundabout way of like, I went through this really big thing in my life and I chose living fully. And I would say like, oh, I stopped drinking because, it wasn't serving me or whatever. I would dance around it in like a pretty crown and sash way. And then eventually I was like, oh my gosh, what a disservice I'm doing with the platform I have if I don't tell the whole story. And so I wrote the book. And while I was writing the book, they kept on wanting to come back to my journey of like the recovery piece of it. And I kind of still, as I was writing the book, I think I wanted to like dance and paint it with a prettier brush. And I'm so thankful that, I had great Random House was my publisher and they were awesome. And I had this amazing editor. Her name was Becky. And she just kept like wanting to go back to it. And I was a little bit like resistant because I was like, I want to show the other side. My story is the other side. My story. And I realized like that was still this little tiny piece of that perfectionistic, shiny things person is I wanted it to still, I wanted them to know my story, but be like, but look at me now. Look at me now. Cheer for me still a little bit. Even though I did this, remember this, like, please. And I chose to really like share the story in its totality. And I'm really glad that I did, because not only did it change my life, and there's a beautiful thing about, like you talked about it, like when it's all kind of out there, you just go like, oh. I didn't know how it would be received, but I thought it would be received well, because it's almost like 99% of the time that we share the things that we're so afraid that people are going to feel a certain way about. 99% of the time they love you even more and they admire you even more and they respect you even more, and they don't think of you like in this way that you think they're going to think of you. And that was the way my book was received, and it has helped so many people. It has helped me. It has helped. The night before the book came out, it was like already on all the shelves and everything, and I had a little freak out moment. And a mutual friend, Jamie Kern-Lima, Jamie Kern-Lima.
She's a dear friend. I love Jamie.
I love Jamie. She wrote the foreword to my book, and the night before, I kind of had a freak out of like, oh gosh, like I did it, and like I can't stop it now. Like the train, once the book's published, the train, they printed it, like it's going on the shelves. And she said something to me, and I'll never forget it. And she was like, if you want to inspire people, show them your success. Like you're showing them your success and stuff like that. But she's like, if you really want to impact people, like this is the stuff that you share. She said it in a much more poignant way, and I can't remember exactly what she said. But I was like, I didn't want to inspire anymore. I wanted to impact. And I think my book was the shift in my going from just being a person that would inspire you with the life that I was living to like the impact. Because what a beautiful thing when the people that you admire like share those types of things and make you feel not alone or a little bit better about your situation, or that is the most inspirational thing to me. And still to this day, I mean, like just even the conversation me and you were having before, like I learned things about you that you share with me that like just another piece of your story that I'm like, it's an immediate thing of like, oh, that made me feel better. That made me feel better. And that's what I wanted people to feel. And I think that, I hope that that's what they felt when they found out that part of my story.
Well, I want to start by talking to those of you that may be listening out there that might be impacted by your story. And if I've got a person too, and now if you've ever had a person that showed up for you at your worst and they were able to see your best or see what was possible, and they immediately went into action when you didn't have action in your deck, you didn't have that card to play, then it's hard. It's really hard not to become one of those people.
Yes.
For other people. But I know there's many of you that didn't get the lotto when it comes to mom and dad. In my case, mom was kind of my North Star when it came to the intervention I needed on my life. You were very much describing parts of my story when it was like, yeah, I held it together and everything on paper looked so great until it just didn't. And it was starting to come out sideways. And both were really helpful. My mom and dad, I had a really interesting dance with both of them. And they didn't do it perfectly. It was super messy. They used to tell parts of the story where they messed it up. And I'm like, I don't even need to tell that part of the story anymore because I'm just so thankful I had those people that cared enough about me to figure out, okay. And especially my mom, kind of at the end there, she was like, no, we're going to do this, and this. But not everybody has those circumstances. Right. But I want to say to you out there, not only am I a person who's had that experience, I have also now been witness to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people who've had an altar moment and didn't know if there was another way forward and didn't necessarily have a caregiver or someone in their family or a close friend that could come alongside them and remind them that they were worth the journey. And that's the trick of mental health conditions and addictions is it's really isolative. And that can be one of the scariest parts once you're laid into it is feeling very much alone. It used to be a mistake I'd make with people early in the process is often there can be awkward moments when people are really dealing with pain, especially emotional and mental pain. Because obviously if you get a cast on, that's everybody's running to sign your cast, you know.
Yes.
That's easier to talk about. But if you're like, hey, I've got depression, sometimes we don't know what to say, or I just lost my parent or my spouse or my dog, and often you don't know what to say to acknowledge or support somebody in grief. And so I've made all the clumsy mistakes and said some of the wrong things. And I've since learned that it's not necessarily what you say or don't say, it's the intention behind the words. It's the energy that you give them, because you can make all kinds of mistakes and still have the right intent. But I used to tell people all the time, it's like, you're not alone. You're not alone. That was prescriptive advice that people told me when they were alone. And I stopped saying that a few years ago because at first I wasn't getting the response I hoped for. It's almost like telling somebody to calm down when they're really anxious. Well, it doesn't matter if that's realistic or not. Some of the most public people I know, some of the biggest family people I know feel more alone today than you would ever imagine. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if they are alone or they're not alone, they feel alone. Yeah. And so I validate that now. Yeah. It is hard to feel alone. Yeah. And I recognize that you feel that way right now instead of just immediately trying to talk them out of my own discomfort.
It's so true.
But if you're out there right now and you are feeling isolated and alone, I don't even know how many, 70, 80,000 pieces of data that there is someone. There is someone. Here's two right here, and we couldn't support everybody, but you better believe we'll champion people's story because somebody championed ours. But there is someone who can show up with you and put love in front of agenda. They can put grace in front of advice, and they can break a door down or help you crack a door that you will ultimately break down to walk you towards hope, freedom, and the life that you fully deserve. Yeah. And that's my hope if you're listening, is if you're feeling really alone, we want to validate that we've been there. It's a tough place to be, and there is a way out. And there is a person. I don't know who that is for you yet, but the risk is if I start to unfold parts of my story, will I be the lucky one? And you just validated. I don't have a true statistic to back this up, but I would agree with your percentage you put on it. 99% of the time when I tell people things that I don't think are going to endear them to me or connect me to them, it's going to make us closer. Yes. And it's going to make them trust me more. Yeah. And that's been my experience, even as a provider in this space. I've gone through all kinds of crazy seasons of, well, I'm so sick of talking about my pain story. Can I tell them what's great in my life? I'm just tired of talking about it. So and then I'll get to that and I'll tell, and I think it's important to do that sometimes. And then I'll overcorrect and get so far here that I forget to tell them about the hard part. And I just think people are craving the honesty. And there's three reasons why I think people like us and people like all of you listening might step a little further into being a guide for people's story. And like I said, it's unforgivable. Once somebody's been a guide for your story, it's almost hard not to become a guide for other people's stories. And I use the word guide. We actually call all of our therapists guides at Onsite. I borrowed this from my good friend Donald Miller, who you guys will be hearing from soon. I can't remember when we had a great conversation with him that's going to be coming out.
Wait.
I think it may be coming out before this one does, but reference back to it. He studies story for a living, and he's one of the best authors you'll meet. He's a writer's writer. He's a great writer, and he was a New York Times bestselling author before he ever became a big business entrepreneur. But I like the way his brain works, like the way he thinks. But he really wanted to understand the psychology of stories. So he broke it all down. He started teaching this 5-part story framework and how every story works just the way we're talking about. That you have to go through a really significant struggle. A guide comes into your life, and suddenly you get to hit a story arc and move to the other side. I'm very much cheapening down his version. It's very awesome.
Yeah.
Story brand. Go check it out. But at first, when I came and introduced that concept to 150 master's level therapists that have multiple credentials behind their names, probably more than could fill up a business card and all these training certificates, I was like, man, they may not love this. I'm cheapening this fancy brand down to a guide. But I wanted to do it because I think humans are wired biologically to show up beside other humans and help them occasionally be able to see the things that cloud our reality and keep us from living into who we truly are. And I always had this vision in my mind is I never want to be in front or behind somebody. I never want to push people where I think they need to go. And I also don't want to be over here trying to drag them where I think they need to go. I just want to be beside them and shine a light on my experience, strength, and my hope in a way that would ideally motivate them and impact them. And I do that for 3 reasons. I learned early on, and I bet you did too, that, helping other people helps me.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? That's the payoff. That's literally the bonus. And I know for those of you that are listening that are in recovery, you're like, yeah, we get it. Speaking of the choir, that's kind of one-on-one recovery. You give back by being of service to other people. But guys, I'm telling you, that applies way more to people, way beyond people in recovery than you think.
Yes,
that is a human trait that if we show up and we add value to another human's life, if we are of service to people in need, it will do nothing but enrich our lives. That's number 1. Number 2, I found out I was actually pretty good at it. And I think all humans are. I think all humans are good at this. And I don't think, even those that think, I'm not, I think all humans are wired to help other humans. But I used to do it before I was even into my redemption story. Like I was just the guy that people talked to on the plane, even when I was a hot mess.
Guy that people talk to on the plane.
And you learn that everybody has a hand to hold out and lend to somebody else. One day into recovery, 2 days away from my depression 20 years ago, I was often the better person to talk to then than I would be now, 20-something years on the other side of it and having all these fancy things.
Wow.
And it wasn't because I had the experience to know how to tell them to get out of the hole, but I was a guy 2 days out of the hole that knew exactly what the hole felt like. And I wasn't one of those people that were going to stand on top of the hole and point it and show them a map. Let me hold a map up here. Here's how you get out. Or let me throw you a ladder. At that time, I knew I'd jump down in the hole with them. And I was like, because I know the way out. And there is a way out. So your story is reminding me so much of mine, but it's also inspiring me so much of like, I think humanity's a little divided right now. And I think we need to get in the hole with each other and figure out how we support each other on our next step. So it helps me. And B, I think we're all wired to do it and we're all kind of good at it. And even when you think you're not equipped, and be careful with it, because again, the codependent, you can get too far out in front of your skis. I was 2 weeks into treatment too when I was ready to start a program and write a book and had a whole thing.
We're similar in a lot of ways.
But you know what happened to me then? It's one of these cool angel moments where this counselor I really respected, he had every reason in the world to put me back in my place and to be like, all right, buddy, you're 2 weeks into figuring this out. You're not enough of an expert to speak on it yet. You need to stay in your lane and go do your work. Which for a shame-riddled guy like I was at the time, that would have been enough for me to never touch it again. I'd have been like, oh, he's right. I'm not equipped. Yeah. Instead, he looked at me and he said, look, I think you have a gift. I think you have a gift of I think you can make a really big impact in this space. So I think your instincts are really good. I think you're all over it. And here was the script flip. That was just a great reframe. The people who I know that have spent a career in this space, that they get honored, they win the Lifetime Achievements Award, they've helped thousands of people. Here's the important part, and they have a life to show for it. Because I can give you more examples of people who've spent their career doing what I do and have no life to show for it than I can the other way around. And this, in all of our professions, yours too, they will take from us if we're not careful and intentional about prioritizing them. Is the people who have a life to show for it and have done all these great things, they did one thing that was very important. They got a PhD in themselves. And I never forgot it, and I've said that to lots of people since, because often we think we need external knowledge. We need so many things that are going to equip us to go be a great entrepreneur, a great leader, or and I thought all that. I thought, what license do I get first? What master's degree do I get first? What do I get? And when can I start? Can I start tomorrow? Because if I start tomorrow, then a year from now. And he was like, you just started. You're 2 weeks into your own process. This is your graduate school.
Yeah.
Do your work, and it will equip you more than anything you'll ever learn on being able to show up for people congruently and authentically going forward. And I'll be dang if he wasn't right.
A PhD in yourself. A PhD in yourself. Because we have PhDs, I think, in other people now. Because we're watching their life and we're judging them and we're saying, well, they shouldn't do it. They should do. But like a PhD in yourself, that's good.
Well, and it's kind of one of those,
good.
if I don't, and I don't mean it from I do think you can go too far in that lane and wake up one day and see all you're doing is studying your belly button and never, you've taken self-awareness to the extreme.
Yes.
And that's you got to be really careful with that. But for somebody who avoided those parts of my stories for so long, I'm really adamant on saying, I can't go really stand in the gap for someone else until I fully know the intention behind why I'm doing it. And to know the intention behind why I'm doing it means I have to get under the hood and understand myself. Who's showing up here? Why am I showing up here? Is this pure? What am I doing? How am I doing it? So I think knowing ourselves really helps us understand others.
Yes.
And once we understand others, then we can understand how we and others, us, can get together. Yeah. And I think you put that together, we can do life and leadership really well. So there's an acronym there I just said called SOUL, self, others, us, life.
Self, others, us, life.
And that has,
I love that.
That's helped me really well because just like you're using, I love words too, but you're saying, I want to help people live fully. Well, if we're going to live fully, then we got to get the soul back into what we're doing.
Yes, we do.
And I've been on a mission ever since. I started out in the crisis-based space and working with people in residential treatment, intervention, and all that. And then I realized, what about the rest of us? What about the worried well out there that the fine? Which that's another great, when you were talking about being fine, being the new, what'd you say?
Rock bottom, yeah.
New rock bottom?
Yeah.
There's a funny acronym for fine that's I've heard long ago in recovery circles, which is when somebody tells you they're fine, it's freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Yes. I forgot about that one.
Remember that one?
Yes. Oh, that's good. Yeah, freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Yeah.
That's
sometimes
that's right.
they plugged in the other F on the
yes,
beginning.
Yes, I know.
But
They
made it PG.
They loved that other F in the rooms of recovery. Yeah, it's their favorite word.
But all we're encouraging you to do here, and I want to pivot. I just am. Maybe I don't need to because it's so funny what you talked about with Jamie. By the way, I was just out there a couple months ago and stayed with her and Paulo. Got caught up with them. I love those people.
Yeah, she's just the best. I haven't been to her house yet.
You got to see it. It's amazing.
I know.
I really think we're designed to stand in the gap and share parts of our truth. And even in this conversation, I'm sitting here thinking, well, shoot, we got to get into the entrepreneur. You're crushing it at life. We got to get into all that.
Just look at Instagram. It's fine. This is more important.
And we're camped out right where we need to be.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
So I've slowed this down a little bit, and I hope it's been encouraging for you. I'm actually encouraged. I'm talking more than I normally talk in a pod because it brought up so much of my own story. And that's what I hope it does for you. That's a whole point of Human School. Social media. I would like to hear about that. And if it's okay, I'll double back.
Yeah.
And feel free to summarize anything. I just regurgitated a lot. So anything you want to comment on your story and takeaways, feel free to lead with that. But I would love to hear about your relationship because I do think beyond social media, I guess it's just distraction. I think distraction is the new addiction.
I do too.
And I'm kind of struggling with it.
Miles,
especially when it comes to socials. It gets me.
We're like in the room together. Like you and I both know the on-site rooms. Like Jim Kress is our counselor, and me and you, we're Jim Kress. I know I can say that. Can I say that?
Of course,
right?
yeah.
I'm not going to say the other people that were in the room with me, but I'm going to say
He's one of the amazing therapists that does some work with us at Onsite. He's awesome.
Gosh, he's awesome.
He also does some of his own work too. He's just a great man.
He's a great man, and he was my. Well, you've had Annie on your podcast too, and he was Annie's.
Oh, we talked about him.
Guide in the room. He was my guide in the room. And if Jim Kress were in a room with me and Miles, like I struggle with it too. And I love it that you're saying that you struggle with it, because that gives permission to people who think, oh, I've got it going on. I shouldn't be struggling with this. When I was writing my book, I remember saying I would get frustrated at parts, and I was like, well, I'm writing the book on this. I have to figure this out right. I have to know it to write a book about it. And they were always like, do you really think that all the people that you admire, the Tony Robbins and the Brene Browns and the Jamie Kern Lewisons, she's like, they do struggle. This is like the humanness is part of what they still do it. I still read my own stuff, but thank you for saying that. That gives permission to me, to a lot of people probably, who are probably much more distracted, that you struggle with it, because if somebody that's got it going on and that lives in the recovery space, eats, sleeps, and breathes it, then we know this is a real thing. And I believe it is something that I think that first, I think that we're looking at it in terms of what is this doing to our kids? Like with the books that came out in the Anxious Generation and all of the stats and all that kind of stuff. But also, what is it doing to us? What is it doing to us? I grew up in the age where there wasn't an internet. Even whenever I did Miss Kentucky and The Amazing Race, social media like Facebook was kind of like a thing. But I have seen the emergence of it all. I have built businesses on the backs of it. I have loved it. I have become obsessed with it. I have had to find a healthy relationship with it. And I have one mostly now. But when I don't, I have to find tools because it is so integrated in what I do. And now that you are showing up more on socials, and I think it's also hard when you're doing something good on socials. You're doing something so good on socials. So is a little obsession and distraction when you're doing something good like a bad thing? You and I both know yeah, it can become one. But I use that brick because I don't have the willpower sometimes to shut it off at night. And it is so good. It is so good at sucking me in. Is it so good at once you get on it, do you kind of get? Well,
what I've done is I've kind of started making, when I get, and I'm so glad you leaned in with what you started with. Because I go all in. Give me something I want to learn or want to be good at. Like this, I really want to be good at this. I'm not good at it yet. I'm green at this. I'm 12 episodes in. I'm trying. I do have conversations for a living.
Good at it.
Thank you. And I love conversations. So I'm doing something I love, but I still, how do you do it in this format? How do you distribute it? And how do you do this? And so I'm trying to learn it all. And I guess social media is just like another thing. For some reason, I have more guilt there. I'm like, well, I've got all the tools. I should be better at this. Mm-hmm. But the reality is I'm trying to learn it. And I think it's okay to be a little obsessed with something in the beginning. Yes. But what I've done is, I guess the problem area, because I'm guilty of what you said. It's like the bedtime stories and the look over the shoulder, is I'm starting to, all my communication is starting to happen because it's like wherever you spend your most time, and I'm getting my news from there, and I'm getting everything from there. Mm-hmm. And so it's just requiring more and more and more and more time. And, oh, by the way, you're going to design a home. That's a perfect place to get it. Mm-hmm. Get all your inspiration right here. Oh, you need to do this. And so it's becoming kind of my life as a tool. Yeah. And I'm embarrassed to admit that a little bit. But and in some ways it's great, but in a lot of ways I realize it's too distracting. And it's robbing me from my presence a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I know we both are struggling with it, and I appreciate you saying that. You gave me grace with the first thing you said. It's, you're learning something new. Of course you're obsessed with it. But you've been struggling. You've been at it longer. So what are some of the rhythms you've created besides the brick, which we should tell people a little bit more about what that is?
Where's my person? Look, because thank you. So we're talking about this, but I remember them saying something in treatment about people that had eating disorders. And I remember them saying it's one of the hardest addictions to break. That wasn't something that I struggled with. But they said, with alcohol and drugs, some of these things, you can put your monster in a closet and you can close the door.
Right.
They have to go into the closet, take their monster by the hand, sit down at a table and eat with their monster and put it back in there. And then pull it back out and have to sit down and eat. They have to eat food. That's part of their addiction. I think social media is like that. I think that it is one of the everybody's doing it and it seems harmless, but isn't that how it always begins? So I think that you have to have tools, and this is not sponsored. I buy my own. I've bought them 3 times. This thing is one tool that I have used because I have a hard time not getting on it at night. Because if you're trying to be present in the day and you're trying to be off of your phone during the day, well, when all these 900 kids that I've had go to sleep, I got to get the phone out because I'm trying to be a present mother and I'm trying to do all the things that are balancing my life when my life is integrated with my phone. So at the end of the year, I've never really taken a full social media break. You can take this thing out. Watch, I'm going to have 12,000. Look at this. 1,351 text messages. You want to talk
makes
about?
you feel better.
I don't have my life completely together. I hope nobody in here is having an emergency. Usually I can see whenever those pop up and I answer. Yeah, what are you at, Miles?
Let's see. Oh, that can't be right. I got no red dots, but it's because I got my phone on.
You got it on airplane mode. That's why. Turn it on. See what's Vanessa need right now. She needs you. She needs an answer on something.
That's actually not bad though. It's 107 on the red on the text, and then 68 on the calls.
And how many of those probably came in the last hour?
A lot.
Yeah, I know. I know your life. I live the same one. So we kind of have to find a way to deal with it because this is our life. This is. Like you've said, I wrote another chapter in my book, Don't Let Your Blessings Become Your Burdens. You've said that before in so much of your content. Blessings, burdens, what is it? Gosh, you've said it. I remember so many of the things you say because you're one of those people that imprints on my brain. What do you say about, you can be overwhelmed and proud at the same time? That's another good one. Okay. But anyways, back to the brick, this thing. So I say, look, 10 hours and 3 minutes today. You push this button, it bricks all my social medias. Watch this. So now I can hide this brick. There's something though about that.
Having an external, because I tried it first with there's some apps that will do that, but it would just felt like another app. And even though the brick is an app, it's an external thing that you go doop, and it is effective.
And then you can put it in another room. It's weirdly effective. You've turned Instagram off. Your phone is currently bricked. To access this app, and then it says back to living. Love it. Okay, so that's a tool. But you know what, Miles? I said it about living fully before. I think if you're a person that can listen to your own thoughts or that can write in a journal and notice patterns, you know when there's a problem. And I bet half the people that are listening to this right now know that we probably all have a little bit of an issue with it. And I think it's back in the days when everybody was smoking cigarettes. Everybody was smoking cigarettes. Nobody knew there was anything wrong. The cool cowboy that looked like Miles is out there smoking a cigarette. Well, of course I want to smoke a cigarette. They look like Miles. And you pregnant women smoking cigarettes, nobody knows there's anything wrong. Well, finally, oh, by the way, maybe you shouldn't smoke all those cigarettes. Then by the way, oh yeah, maybe they're they're killing us? Well, shoot, So I think social media is a little bit like that right now. It's kind of like wait, look what it's doing to our kids. Here's some studies. Here's what's happening. Oh gosh, it's happening to my kids. I see it. Is it too late? What can I do? I think that we're having the conversations, but we're in the middle of it right now. We're in the middle of it right now. And you and I are part of our jobs, part of our positive jobs that are trying to help other people exist on this thing.
Big part of it.
Yeah. So it's how do we take the monster out of the closet that could be a monster to us? How can we live alongside of the distractedness that can be something that coincides with these cell phones that we have all day, every day? But also not throw the baby, with this old country saying, throw the baby out with the bathwater, and still utilize this as a tool. Because you know what? It's an amazing tool.
Yeah.
Because there are things, 257,000 shares is I think what I saw on your last reel that went super viral. You tell me out of the 257,000 shares, that didn't change somebody's life. Definitely changed a lot of people's lives. I bet a lot of people made different resolutions this year, are going into 2026 different, hearing what you said on that little tiny reel. So what a powerful thing social media is in ways like that. And if you can get quiet enough to listen to your own voice, and now there are all these tools in social media that allow you to cater your feed to the positivity that it feeds you. There are ways that you can shut these apps off, but also like back to the PhD in yourself. You know if it is distracting you from the wonderful things in your life. If you get really quiet and you really think about it. One of my resolutions in 2026 is to not be on my phone when I get in my bed, to write in my journal. And every night I write, and it can be like 5 sentences and then a little gratitude blurb. That is transformative in my life. A person that spent 6 months in recovery, a person that wrote a book on living fully, a person that does podcasts, a person that gets people into treatment centers. That teeny tiny thing helps me to put my distraction in the closet and is a powerful tool in my life. So sometimes in the world of recovery, in the world of life, in human school, it is oftentimes the simplest things that make the biggest difference. And I think you and I are pretty decent at like listening to our own voices. And so I think that like I would encourage other people. If you're reading the bedtime story and you're looking at the phone, I think that's like a little nudge. That's a nudge to me when I'm doing it. If you're eating every single meal and you're scrolling through your phone.
And to say it more clearly real quick on the, because if you played that out, if you are with your child and you're prioritizing something else over y'all's moment, that's a nudge.
Mm-hmm. That's a nudge. If it's a pull too. Like it's a pull. You know what there was this book that I read, I don't even remember what it was, but it said something like, when did we start taking our phones into the bathroom with us? When did we start panicking when we left our cell phone? When you pull out of your driveway and you go around the corner and you realize you left your cell phone, I bet 90% of the people listening to this, especially if they're under the age of like 45, they have heart palpitations. But like back in the day, I mean, pregnant women used to drive around without a cell phone at 9 months pregnant, and they were fine. Like they didn't feel the panic. Like we have become so accustomed to having it all the time. And we as human beings are going to have to be the ones that like break that cycle for ourselves. That's going to be an internal thing, I think, for everyone. And like I actually really love it that you and I, as people who have figured out parts of our lives and like what does work for us, like to share that we're still figuring this part out, because I think as a whole society, like we're really still figuring this part out.
Yeah.
And I think that this is probably going to speak to a lot of people in this fresh new year, 2026. And it's a really interesting year too, because like I said, it was kind of like, oh, the inauthentic human things that you're watching, the authentic human things that you're watching. But now they've got all this AI stuff that can really grip you, and you're sitting there watching something that's not even a thing. Like, to me, that feels like a waste of a life. I don't, sorry. Look at me apologizing to the AI. Who is the AI? I don't know. Who am I apologizing to? But AI. I mean, the AI, sorry. But like, it's not real. We can use it as a tool as human beings. But I think that this is something that I'm still learning. It's something that I'm learning as a parent too. But it's something that, just like I've been determined in living fully, anytime something pops up, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to figure it out, because I'm committed to living fully, living my life fully. And you know what living life fully is not to me? This.
Yeah.
This, I mean.
Because I don't feel full after it.
I don't feel full after it. No. I'll come across like 10% of the stuff that I come across. Like when I've come across your stuff, or when I come across people that I've curated in my feed that I love, or garden inspiration. I also have like the outdoorsy kind of like flowery, gardeny, sourdough-y.
You aren't on a farm yet.
I know, because I will one day.
Yeah,
but
it's
I'm
coming
turning
up.
my little backyard into a farm.
Oh, you are?
You ready to sell yours to me? Because with all the things you're dealing with,
yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
It can be good, but I do think that we have to be aware of like when it's not. and not let it suck us into a black hole and take us away from the life that we're living. We're talking about like people reading bedtime stories that are like wanting to pull to their phone. Why does my phone keep buzzing and stuff like that? Like that is a finite amount of time that I know I have. And it is a battle that I battle because my businesses and my life are very tied to that phone. And the good things that I feel like I'm giving back and putting out into the world are tied to that phone. But oftentimes I can use that as an excuse.
Sure. Well, the way you're describing it, I think so important is, I asked that question as if you were going to give me a 3-point PowerPoint on how to stop having a bad relationship with my phone. And I'm not a big fan of, by the way, they sell self-help books, but there's no 3-step process out of a problem.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's a process that got you into the problem. It's a process that's going to help you get out of the problem. And before you can even understand the problem, you have to identify it, open it up, have a little dialogue, get a little context. So the conversation has been helpful because the first thing you did is, hey, have a little grace on yourself.
Yes.
Don't you? I mean, you realize. So I'm
Absolutely.
saying this, I'm doubling for myself because you just did it for me, but I'm also saying it to all of y'all if you can relate to where I am. Have a little grace on yourself based on where we are as humanity at this time with this thing.
Yeah.
It's so thoughtful. And then from there, you said, look, if you're self-aware, you know. And so immediately I was like, there's a question under the question here that I hadn't wanted to ask it, which is, this really ain't about social media for me.
Yeah.
In some ways it is, but if I really think about it, okay, well, what are you up against? I know I've taken all of the tests and the assessments because I've delivered a lot of them. It's my space, but I show up pretty high on the obsessive trait.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
me
not
too.
the compulsive. So I don't have the full spectrum of OCD. I have lots of friends that struggle with that side, but the obsessive side is bouncing around thoughts in your head all the time, and it's a gift and it's a burden, like we talked about. But when you get wrapped around on it, when it gets wrapped up, it's tough. It's tough to break. But I'm putting out something brand new into the world. I've been a behind the scenes guy most of my career. Love it. Nothing wrong with that. Something and yet I've made a decision because of what you just said, which is I'm getting older. I'd rather multiply impact. And if I think I've got some kind of experience or something to say, I'd love to have a downstream ripple. Well, this is the most effective way to get a downstream ripple. Most downstream, eyes, ears, the whole thing. And I also can get perfectionistic. I get wrapped up around words, and I can't turn the editor off. I mean, my team has watched me struggle with that. I'm driving them crazy because I'm like, that's the wrong word. We got to change the word. Got to change it. And it's a gift because it might be the way to frame it that gets people interested in it. And it's a burden when you can't let it go. Yeah. And so this is not really about social media. It's probably about, it makes sense that you'd be bumping into your perfectionism again because you're putting something new publicly out into the world. So another dose of grace. And so I'm only reason I'm walking you back through my timeline of the last 5 minutes of this conversation is you didn't come in as an expert.
No.
And say, oh gosh, I've done this. I got 1 million followers. Let me tell you how to do this. I also got a great family, and here's how you parent and do it well. You came in and said, oh my gosh, that's totally normal. I struggle. Let me tell you why I struggle. And while you were zooming out, I'm over here getting clarity. And now I got to go home and do something about it. And I hope you might too. I'm going to borrow a page out of your playbook. I do have the brick. I need to start using it again because I put it back. I buried it in my
I'll give you
little
mine
bag.
if you don't know where yours is because I got 3 at home.
Do I know where it is? Oh, you have it. I put it in the penalty box.
Don't worry.
Take it. That comes back out today. Can you help me with that? And then I'm gonna try to go to bed tonight without the phone. I've done that before, and it's probably the most beneficial thing I do for my sleep, for my well-being. Yeah. But I've gotten out of practice with it, so I'm gonna borrow that page from your playbook too tonight. Starts tonight.
But I'm glad that you said that about the grace because, and I also am obsessive, but I don't think. I think obsessive when it's managed well, just like being an achiever. When it was bad for me, when I use it against myself, but when it's good for me, like I've created huge businesses about being really obsessive about creating the perfect pajama or the perfect sweatshirt. When I see what you're doing and what you're putting out there, like I'm really glad that you talked about giving yourself grace because it is the way to multiply impact. What you're putting out there is so powerful. I mean, I watch motivational content a lot, and I can still remember you standing in the stream, walking up the stream. This is how I lived most of our life, walking down the stream. There's a funny thing about how, like, the stream flows with you. There's something about what you're putting out that is so powerful. And the nature of like what you do. Of course, you're questioning it and like feeling like it's a little too much, but it's also like part of it is probably okay. And like the part that's not, it's human. Break your phone at night, write in your journal. You're fine. You're always fine. But like, what a beautiful thing when someone that everybody puts on a pedestal of having it all together shares like this, oh, by the way, this little thing that I'm struggling with again, perfectionism. Yeah, it lives in my closet too. Yeah. And it comes out every once in a while. But it's a beautiful thing.
Well, gosh, you've been so generous in that's why I think I circled that. I put inspire and I put a line through it, and then I put impact. And I think I may flip those later. But I think that's why you're making an impact, is because there's other questions I could probably ask. I could talk to you for a couple more hours, and anybody would love that opportunity because you're a great conversationalist and have a lot of insight. So are you. But I bet if I were to say, okay, I thought about going here next, but I'm not going to because I have a feeling you'll naturally do what you do well, which is, how are you doing all this stuff? You're an entrepreneur, you're a mom, how do you balance it all? My guess is you'd slow it down. You'd give it a human element. You'd give yourself and the person across from you some grace. You'd give it some insight. You'd talk about how to disrupt it. You wouldn't say I've mastered it. Figuring it out. And I think we need impact is seeing that we're on this journey with other people that are just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Maybe that's 26. We're all trying to figure it out.
And we talked about obsessed. You know what I am obsessed with living fully. That is what it is to me. It's figuring it out when it's gone awry. That's my whole life.
Why the obsession of living fully?
Because I lived a great life until I was 23 years old and my spiral started. It was awesome. I had a great childhood. It was idyllic in a lot of ways. It was beautiful. It was happy. I remember like sitting in the rooms with therapists and they would say, well, what was it? Like, what was, where was the trauma? What was the event? And I was one of like the very few people that was like, you know what? There isn't a lot of that in my story. And I felt a lot of guilt about that, like in treatment. And then I went to treatment, taught me adversity, delivers me this beautiful, rich, grounded life with roots and a sky and clouds. And it was just so much richer. So there was a difference to me in like living this great life like I did before that was void of much hardship or adversity. It was just like happy, great, good, cool. And living fully to me is what was on the other side. Living fully to me is facing everything that you keep, to use traditional language, sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. And then eventually you're in your living room and your Ushak, whatever you say, rug has this big mountain in it. And everybody in your living room is sitting around watching TV and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I deal with everything that comes into my life now. And these things, because they don't build up and they don't pile up. And that was taught to me by recovery. They keep me living this like full life that feels different than just like living a good one, living a happy one. I also know I can handle anything. I can take anything. I'm not afraid of adversity. And I used to be so afraid of adversity, and now I'm not. And I'm obsessed with living fully because I think everyone deals with things. Some people don't face them their whole lives, I don't think. But living fully to me is taking all of those things and just using them to live a bigger life, using them to live a life that is truly full. And living fully means different things to me in different seasons. And I think living fully to me right now, and what I'm obsessed with about living fully, is the fulfillment piece. Because I'm a constant achiever, and it's just like, I want a podcast. Okay, top 3 podcasts, great. Book, whatever. Wall Street Journal, number 2, whatever. I don't even remember where we were in all the things. It's the sash and it's the crown. Like, I get obsessed with the things. Pajama brand, we're doing this, we're doing... and I think that the next piece for me that I'm learning in school is fulfillment. Because as an ultra achiever that wants to live this bigger, fun, out there, I want to do all the things life, there is a piece of like slowing down and quiet of like, when is it enough? When is it okay to slow it down? When is it okay to not go there with every single idea that you have and make it a multi-million-dollar business and this enterprise and hire all these people in? There's like this thought that I have about like where I want to raise my kids. Like, are we city people? Are we country people? I don't know. I grew up this country person, and now they're living life like so different than me in a city. And I wonder, like, is it too loud and fast? And is there too much opportunity? And is there too much pressure in all these schools? And we get into this school and it's great. And then you can go to this kind of school. And I'm like, I hope I'm making the right decision as a parent. I hope I'm not being like the ultra achiever of my own life. And I think that the piece of the puzzle that I have to bring in and the next version of what living fully will be to me is the fulfillment piece. I have a lot of fulfillment in different things, but like the full life, like full body fulfillment thing is something that I don't think I've quite mastered yet. Because I still like love doing it all.
Well, I'm right there with you. And I think that's a message we all could take away is I don't think that, I think the hustle culture and the competitive nature of being driven gets a bad rap because I think it's a really cool, I'm the same way. If I do something, I want to do it well. I mean, I'd love to see something have a big impact. Yeah. And you have to ask yourself somewhere along the way at what cost. So I don't think it's either or. I don't think the prescriptive advice is always, the hustle culture whole thing is toxic.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think it is. It's driven people trying to optimize what they're doing at the highest level. It's I'm competitive in nature.
Me too.
Any sport court I get on, I'm going to go like I'm playing for the Super Bowl. My age is starting to reflect that on the basketball court these days. That's why I'm nursing my arm. But I like that part of me. I want to parent so well, and I want to be good at it. And yet, if good doesn't have a dose of meaning and value and fulfillment and fully living, that's where I think it gets out of balance.
Yeah.
Because I cannot tell you, and I know I've said this before on this podcast, I'll probably say it again, but I see it too much. I got too much evidence to support otherwise of people who have accomplished beyond your wildest dreams.
That you sit across from and they're not happy in their life.
They're not fulfilled. They're not living full. They're not feeling congruent, not feeling authentic, not feeling integrated. And I got a good lesson the last 2 years because being in the background, you get to dole out a lot of advice without the risk of being in the lifestyle. And now I'm a little more in the lifestyle. And the last 2 years, I've made some decisions to go travel a ton with my vocation. A lot of it was my stuff, and some of it was traditional touring with some. I work a lot with artists, and I really got to test the theory.
Yeah,
like. The things I tell my people who spend 200 days a year on the road or 150 years on the road, I'll get this playbook. It's like, hey, it's not about the time. It's about being intentional about the time you have. All the things I've said over the years, which there's some truth to some of those. But I've learned since I've been home for the last 2 or 3 months, the time with my toddlers, it is about the time.
Yeah.
It's no matter, I couldn't create the moments I've experienced in the last 3 months in the 2 years that I had a void of time. I don't care how intentional I was. I got 2 hours with my daughter. I'm going to be the most intentional this time. No phones, and we're going to make up for lost time. You can't curate those moments unless you're there. And so I think there is a balance that you can hustle, but if you can't constantly look at what am I prioritizing and how might this get in the way of this and this get in the way of this, and how do we you'll never do it perfectly. But I think if we could do it in a more integrated way, and we can live fulfilled.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. And look at the great things that we've been able to create because of that side of us. I love it that you just said that. Like, I love that side of me. I need to say that about I love that side of me too. I love that side of me. I hope my kids see that side of me. I have a really amazing husband who points that out to my kids. I hear him and I see him, and he is a stay-at-home parent. Amazing. Stay-at-home dad. I do not think that. I love
that. What a stud. And he's complimenting, he's parenting your kids to say, encouraged by looking at mom.
I had this event on Saturday where we have these sweatshirts. They say living fully on them. We did this like bracelet collab, and we've had to start capping our events because people will wait in line. They will buy the pajama or to get the book signed or to buy the sweatshirt. They will wait in a line. I mean, we went in New York City, we had this store open for the pajamas, and I think they said there were like 2,000 people that
literally
came.
A new retail store in New York?
It was like a pop-up on Soho.
Whoa.
Though. Like, it was amazing. People waited in line. It's freezing cold, and anyways, it was amazing. But we sold tickets because we were like, we don't want people like waiting in line. There's a small space, and they still waited in line. They were there an hour early, long line. And my boys came, and they're 6 and 7. Which with this 6-7 thing, I'm like, of course, I've got the boys that are 6 and 7 right now. I mean, we're saying I don't think you can say 6-7 at school. I don't know why, because I don't know what it means. But like, I'm always like, these are my boys. They're 6 and 7. They're like 6, 7, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay, complicated. But one will be 8 soon. So
weirdly, I'm not annoyed by it. I kind of like it. I don't know why. I don't know why I like it, but I like even when you said it, I was like, 6, 7. I get it. I like it. Let's keep it alive.
Oh my gosh, I love it that we're talking about 6, 7, you and I. But they're 6 and 7, and they were walking up. It was at 5th and Broad, and they were coming to the event, and they were looking at the line, and like some of my girls that work for me, and Kyle was like, they kept looking, and they were like, all these people are here to meet Mom, and they were like, why? And Kyle's like, let's see. Well, she made a big difference in their life, or they like the sweatshirts, or they're just now starting to notice this. And Kyle he only had 10 minutes because he's coaching the basketball team, and he brought them, and he said to me, I wanted them to see it. I wanted them to see all those people lined up to meet you. I wanted them to. He wants them to see. Look at Mom's book. Look at Mom's shirt. He always tells them, this is why we get to take this trip, because Mom works hard. And I'm like, you don't have to do that, but he does it over and over and over. I don't know why he does that, but like, what a gift that is. And what a gift to have a man in my life that would give up what he did to be a stay-at-home parent, because he says it all the time. He says this, and I don't know what clinically and like hormonally and what the studies show, but per Kyle, he says, men are not cut out for this. Men are not. Kyle. He says, he's like, you're better at this part of this. He's like, this is just not, he's like, sometimes when it seems like I'm frustrated with this, it's because I have to work harder than you do to do this. Because he's like, I'm not naturally wired for this part of it or this piece of it. And it is one of the strongest things I've seen a man do, become a stay-at-home parent to 4 children. We don't really have much help. He's really doing a lot.
That's incredible.
And he's got it going on. And he wakes up in the morning and he's making stuff, and he's taking them to school, making them say their prayers. Then he's coaching the team. Then he's picking them up. Then he's in the Starbucks bathroom with one of them that's potty training for 35 minutes. So like, that's what conversation we had when I was walking in to talk to you. Tell Miles I said hi. Where are you? In the Starbucks bathroom. It's been 35 minutes. Every time I take her to get a cake pop, she wants to be in here. So the people at Starbucks now know, them in the bathroom all the time. But it's a beautiful thing. And he wants to show our kids like the things that I'm doing. And back to like what we're saying, I'm sure that your kids see that in you. I know your kids see that in you. And I have to think of sometimes when I'm stressed and I'm overwhelmed and I'm overworked, and I think about that because I used to watch my dad do a lot of things, and I did think that it was really cool when we were younger. And you know what's funny too? I always worry about the time that I spend like away from my kids. But in reality, when you are like doing my job, I'm kind of like a stay-at-home parent that is running humongous businesses at the same time, which is even more so why I have to figure out the balance of the phone, because I'm working from home. I have an office in Wedgwood, Houston, where everybody else works, but I'm not in there a lot. Like a lot of it is I'm in my house, and I have to find the balance. But like, I do hope they see that in me, and I hope that they remember that about me, and not like, oh, she was distracted by her phone. I hope they remember like, wow, my mom sold hundreds of thousands of pairs of pajamas, and these women that could buy them online, they waited in this line, and one time I went and I saw them waiting, and it was raining. They had umbrellas, and my mom's in there, and I'm like, oh, that is something. We don't celebrate ourselves a lot, but like that is something that is cool about what I do. And every bit of success that I've had, I attribute my success to different things. I had an amazing family. Family is something that I know we haven't talked about on this podcast, but I'm very passionate about the family. I think that's something that we showcase online, and which is hard of like, do you show kids, do you not show kids? Because people love watching a happy family. And that's what we are. We are, of course, we have our ups and downs, and it's totally insane, but we are a happy family. And I hope that inspires young women who are watching it to strive for a happy family, to want to create a happy family of their own, to want to have kids, and like all the things that I believe, like if it is your calling, that this is the good stuff of earth, being on the earth, being a human. But you know, I do. I hope that they remember that about me. I hope that they remember that more than that I was distracted by doing the thing that I do that happens to be tied into this phone. And what a gift it is to be able to do. But that's what I was saying. Sorry to interrupt, but it's also this community that I've built, which is a beautiful thing about online. You have a community. You almost have 100,000 people watching on your social page too. Way more than that, because now Instagram's like TikTok, and it's not even about followers. It's just about like views and impressions and all these things. But my community that I've built is really amazing, which is the reason that my businesses have done so well, because we don't do marketing or advertising or anything really. Like, we are crushing it with this community, this grassroots thing, people sharing this amazing product because they love like what we've been showing on a cell phone. What a cool thing. So
well, it feels like I thought about something else that I've called it authenticity, and I know that's something, a through line through this entire, if this podcast is named anything, it should probably be that. But it's the liminal space, the in-between moments, that is the biggest gift to the people around us. And you give that to your community so well.
yes.
You give them the in-between, the liminal, the not so shiny. And in our space, in my space, I work with often my community's people who are, depending on what metric you use, and I've learned that happiness and success is defined differently with all kinds of people, but you could say, but they're probably more successful than I am, for sure, monetarily, visibility, whatever they built, whatever they're doing. I'm around a lot of high performers, and I love being around them because it's one of those mirror neuron moments, where you play up or down to the people you spend some time with, and but that it affords you some interesting things. One of which is, in my case, is I've been able to get some cool access to certain things. And that's fun when you got kids, because you find out what the kids are interested in.
Yes.
And my son is obsessed with sports. And so I've gotten to give him things that I never did, sideline passes and locker room visits and meet your favorite player kind of moment. But what he really wants, I hate to say this, because look, if you're a team out there that I've worked with and we're going to come see you at some point, please give us a sideline pass, because I'm so grateful, and it is awesome to see my son light up with your star athlete saying hello and get a picture. So I don't take any of that for granted. I'm so thrilled to get to have access in different ways. But lately I've realized that often when I'm doing that, I'm kind of in work mode a little bit, and I don't just have him.
Totally.
I've got the other people that made it possible for me to be there, to spend time with, to be present for, and to be on for. And he's asked me a couple of times. He's thrilled with what he's got to experience. It almost spoiled him. But to go sit in the cheap seats and not talk to another person but him, that's a different experience. And I've done that a time or two. And it's so funny, if you're sitting in the stadium somewhere, I'm sure you're looking at the people that have sideline access saying, why don't I have that? And what you may not realize is the people that have a kid down on the sideline, their kids may be saying, why don't we have that?
Yes.
Because this comes with a little baggage. It's interesting. And I had one of those moments. We talked about that when we got in here, that you kind of hope your kids pick up on some of the things you like, because it kind of naturally gives you things to do together. And you try to introduce them to things you love. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't. I'm trying not to overly play that hand, because I want them to find what they love. Yeah. But I'm a big outdoorsman. I grew up hunting and fishing. I've done it my whole life. And my son shows a little interest. Not a lot of interest, a little interest. And enough that he'll go with me. Yeah. But I think it's more spending time with me than it is actually the pursuit of whatever we're doing. But that flipped yesterday when it was juvenile hunting. Hunting season in where I'm from is a big deal. That's just what you did.
Oh yeah. Hey, Kentucky country girl. You're talking to the choir here.
And we did that at juvenile season, and I took him, and we just had this moment. There was nothing else but he and I. And we happened to be successful and harvested. It was, and we had just had this beautiful moment. I can't even put words to it. I'm still processing it, but he loved it so much. It was probably like a Super Bowl moment for him and for me too. And at the end of it, I started thinking about it last night when I was laying down. I thought, I think I just created a believer. I think he's going to love chasing the outdoors like I do. And I was like, I don't think that's it. He may or may not love it, but he loved having a moment with me.
Yeah, he did.
He loved, and I think we could have been doing anything and it still would have felt that big to him. So I say that to say, these are the human lessons that I continue to learn. I learned a whole lot more of them today because I think you entered people into this liminal space, which is why it's easy to spend time with you. And it's one of the reasons why I'm making this long form. I don't know any other way to communicate anymore. I'm not a soundbite guy, but even some people I really love are like, hey, you may want to think about making these an hour. I know it's intimidating when you look at these and you see who's going to sit down for 2.5 hours. Maybe you will listen to all this, maybe you won't.
Apparently long form content is back in 2026.
It fits me, I think, and you've illuminated this today, is because without the time, you don't get into the liminal.
Yeah.
You don't get into the in-between. It's programmed. It's let me shoot through as quick your stories. I can't get you everything. And I want people to get lost in the conversation like I got lost in it. Like all your family, your extended family, your community that you're building. It's so impressive, but I love that you let people get lost in the in-between so that they feel more sure about who they are and who they're becoming. You're somebody I have just enjoyed getting to know. Glad to get a chance to call you a friend. We could have spent 2 hours on your resume talking about all the companies you're building, and you're crushing it in every area. I want to make sure living fully right there. I'm going to get this just so people.
Oh, I know. You having that on your shelf in your office really meant a lot to me. You're in really good company.
Yeah, you should get that. And if you're inspired by this conversation, you'll definitely be inspired by this story. But outside of people being able to follow you online, if my listeners are new to you, what should they pay attention to? Where can they engage with your work?
I'm basically like everywhere on the internet. That is a good place to be on the internet. So wherever you consume content, Instagram, or if you like podcasts, or if you like to read books, if you like pajamas, if you like sweatshirts, I exist there. So Instagram's a great place to start. If you do like podcasts, I did a podcast for 3-4 years. I had another baby this year, and so we put it on pause. And with having the pajama business in my Sundays is my pajama business that has gotten really big. The sweatshirt business was already big.
In my Sundays.
And it's basically we create. It's so funny because I was a person that never used to sleep and was busy to create something around sleep and rest. It's not ironic. It is things like that happen for a reason. But we created a luxury pajama, and then I cut the price point down. So this really amazing material that's also very eco-friendly too, which you outdoorsmen, I know you'll be interested in this part of the fabric. But when I'm creating hundreds of thousands of units of clothing every year, I started needing to think about that kind of thing, and it became really important. It also happens to be the best fabric that you can make a pajama out of, and you couldn't find it at under $100. And so I set out to do that, and it's been so much fun and such a joy. We just shot our latest collection, and I got the Nashville Ballet, the ballerinas, to be the models, and they danced in the pajamas, and it is epic. It's we've just done some of the coolest. Our marketing is something that we spend a lot of time and energy and money. I mean, we we're talking about, sorry to AI again, but the people that can create probably what it looks like we create with 3 people behind a computer. We have 40 people on set. We employ 40 people. I'm really proud about as a business owner. And as a person that loves human beings, I need 3 camera guys and the lighting guys, and we want to do this in yes, you can create this in post, but let's build the clouds around the angel with the cloud pajama. We do those things, and it's fun. It's a joy. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram, and we show very much our everyday life and what's going on. And I just want to say, too, thank you to you because, as life ebbs and flows and as you spend your energy in different places, especially when you have a multifaceted type of business like I do, I don't get to talk about this as much as I used to, especially now that the podcast is on hold and that I'm not actively writing a book. And this is something that this is the most fulfilling thing to do for me. I love doing everything else that I'm doing. I'm so passionate about it. I'm literally obsessed with pajamas and holiday sweatshirts, truly. like in a really weird way, which is why I'm glad it's what I do. But like, I thank you for inviting me back into this space. I hope in the future, like I'm doing more of this. I had to turn down a lot of speaking engagements and stuff last year because I was so busy and I was having another baby. But like, I love this. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, for all of your work that you're doing, and you talk about your 6 and 7-year-old. I couldn't resist. Your 6 and 7-year-old are starting to find out, and I love Kyle's verse. She helps a lot of people, and that's why people want to come up and see her. I do think you're leaving a trail of legacy that they're going to be really proud of with all the public-facing brands and the things that you're building. But my guess is when they cross over that 20 mark, they're going to be circling the impact on this thing and see my mom has really made a massive impact with conversations like these. What's really cool about legacies, that's why I say this a lot too, is it used to be maybe something that we left behind, and now I think it's really something we live into because everything's recorded. So they might watch this or a clip from this in 10 years and 20 years. And if they do, I want you to hear the entire family that your mom and dad are some of the most impressive, impactful, inspiring people I know. And we don't even get to spend as much time together. That's just me connecting with you guys from afar and just always loving what I see. You're good people, honest people, integral people, redemption people. You got a great story to tell, and you're telling it in a great way. So thanks for doing that with us today.
Thank you. What a joy this was. What an amazing conversation. Thank you for what you do. And how you've shown up for me over and over and over in my life. So this was a joy.
Let's do some more of it. We'll pass some more batons.
Perfect.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, friend. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap. And I just want to share my gratitude and thank you all so much for following along on this journey and for subscribing and leaving us reviews and sharing these podcast episodes. This has been so meaningful and encouraging to me, and it's been encouraging to a lot of other people as well. And you are the fuel behind this whole thing for me. When I hear from you, when we get to engage with you, it really pushes us to want to continue to take these conversations to more and more people who we really feel like deserve to grow, change, and heal. So I hope you'll follow along. I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll leave us some reviews. And I just want to say thank you again, and I'll see you next time on Human School.